Welcome to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast, the show that analyzes the newest technologies in Microsoft Cloud and how to manage those technologies to help your business teams be successful. It's episode 11, and this week we're joined by the leadership team at Virteva to answer some of your burning questions on Microsoft 365 products and services, best practices for securing your organization's data, and exploring the benefits of working with a managed and professional service provider like Virteva. Before we begin, I wanted to remind our listeners that if you haven't already, please toss us a like, subscribe, or a follow on our YouTube channel or inside your podcast app of choice. It's very helpful in helping to promote the show, and it only takes a moment, so it's greatly appreciated. We continue to see good analytics on our shorts content on YouTube, so if you don't have time for a full show, those shorts can give you a glimpse of what we talked about during that show. To start the show off, I wanted to thank our audience for all the questions. We received dozens of submissions from our listeners, and we'll be going over a handful of those today. Today on the show, we're joined by our leadership team at Virteva. Why don't we go around the horn here and give some quick introductions. Let's tell the folks who you are and what you do for Virteva.
Thanks again, Scott, for having us this afternoon. My name is Dan Rosedal with Virteva, Vice President, General Manager, and I've been with Virteva about 10 years, and my responsibility includes a little bit of delivery and sales.
Hi, this is Chris Strong. I'm our Senior Director of Microsoft Solutions here at Virteva, and focus on helping organizations better understand and apply effectively Microsoft modern work technology.
And I'm Zach Brand. I'm Senior Director of Delivery at Virteva, and I lead our delivery efforts across the organization.
Pat Herschel, Vice President of our Business Development Group, and been with the company for over 17 years now. Certainly enjoy helping our team work with our customers on the latest and greatest in technologies.
Hello, Brenda Stelton. I am manager of our professional services team. I've been with Virteva approximately 8 years.
Great. Thank you all. All right, so let's jump into our questions. Our first question is from Emma, and she writes, my organization has been hybrid since the pandemic, and while it's mostly okay, it can be frustrating because of how quickly we shifted to using Microsoft Teams and Microsoft's different services from both Google and Slack. We didn't really get a whole lot of direction on how to use Teams or any of the new tools and have been kind of fumbling through it. What would you say are the best ways that we can improve and be more collaborative?
To that question, Scott, I feel like we would have to do a better job training all of our end users. I know that we did struggle a bit too as we went remote, and not everyone were on the same platform at the same time. And so I think we missed some opportunities with training our people and then just, having more sessions, just making sure that we were connecting via, our Teams meetings or our video meetings, a lot more obviously in the form of chats. And then even if we could, find different times after hours to do more fun events with them online, I think helped. So I think overall, training.
And I would say going forward, it's never too late to train. So if folks are still struggling with the technologies that they're using today in the hybrid environment, sign up for the training now. Get folks comfortable.
Great, that's a great answer.
Yeah,
Dan?
I mean, training doesn't ever really stop. Some of our most successful customers who enable their employees, they look at it as a continuation over time of different things that are introduced into the platform, which are new and improvements, and they use those as opportunities to continuously encourage employees to change how they work and how they engage with each other. And so a lot of our most successful customers within the Microsoft platform, look at it as a monthly and quarterly opportunity to have these training sessions, whether it's one-to-many or if it's even certain power users within departments that can then help spread that information out. We think enablement and training is a huge part of the success in getting the most from the platform that you can.
Excellent. Our next question is from James, and he writes, I'm a cybersecurity manager for a small credit union. I have a very lean staff, and we're constantly barrowed by 0 days and trying to keep on top of business as usual tasks. I'm writing because I've been reading a lot about the enhancements in AI and Security Copilot and was looking for your take on AI and how it can help us dig out and do more with less.
Yeah, happy to help with that one. It's a good question, although I would take a little bit of a different tact with some of the answer in the sense that while AI is going to be a significant enhancing quality with not just security tools, but among them security tools, it's not magic at the same time. And so in many ways, foundationally, I would make the argument that certainly from what we'd experienced and what we tend to try and advise organizations that we work with is first and foremost, have good operationalization of your security team and make sure the humans understand how to efficiently interact with the tools and respond in a reasonably fast manner to when they're alerting and saying, hey, something is amiss. You need to take an action against this. Part of the key with that commonly is making sure the tools themselves are the right array and not falling into the trap that I also often see commonly, which is they end up with 9, 10, sometimes even 15 or 20 different security tools, none of which cross-communicate. And yes, team can be an enabling element to centralize a lot of that, but there are benefits to having a cohesive array of security tools that allow the humans having to interact with them the ability to leverage various elements of automation. And frankly, that's where AI has a lot of the value that it's likely to bring. If we look at the Microsoft stack, all of their Defender suite in combination with Sentinel, now all these tools can cross-communicate. There's a lot of operational efficiencies and effectiveness that can come from the ability for those tools to cross-connect and cross-communicate and share threat analysis and data across them that then can be ingested into the SIEM and operationally addressed from that point. We've seen a lot of success as well with organizations leveraging, for example, AIR, or Automated Investigation and Response, within the Defender suite as a ability to kind of remove the humans from the equation a little bit. It's not to say they're not necessary. It's just that response time becomes so critical in stopping the bleeding. And if we want to abide by zero trust, which is a good methodology, then assume breach is a part of that core principle. And so to do so, we need to try and react as quickly as possible. We're never going to stop all the breaches. We're going to react quickly when they happen. And where this correlates into the AI world is I think that's just going to make it that much more effective for us to respond quickly and effectively when those threats occur, and also administratively and proactively doing things like gap reduction and gap analysis and that sort of thing without necessarily needing subject matter experts at every corner freely available. Now the AI is going to help us interpret what we need to do, how to prioritize it, where those settings, where those controls, where those various gap reduction mechanisms may lie in the context of all these tools, and just help us be smarter and prioritize things better. So it's exciting to see where all the security copilot stuff goes in the Microsoft world, and that should have a significant consequence to allowing a smaller security team to be just as operationally efficient and effective as a larger one. And I think that's going to be the bigger key to where that adds value, is now with 2 people or 3 people, for example, we can do the work of what would have once been 10 and have the ability to have those 2 or 3 people not necessarily have to have in-depth specialization on any one tool because they have that AI as a quote-unquote co-pilot to operationally execute against these tools with them and respond. So yeah, a lot of good enhancements down the pipe from it. But first and foremost, as I mentioned before, is get the house in order with regards to just the existing tool set. Bring that continuity and consistency to the tools and how we operate with them. The AI will just enhance things from there.
Quick follow-up is, what's the first step for many, this customer in the credit union space that wants to get into this, but is it, just start playing around with it? Is it doing assessment work? Is it doing analysis? Like what are the first couple steps for somebody that wants to get into this?
The biggest advice I try to give up front is, before even making a lot of the core decisions around the tools, first analyze and assess what are we needing to protect and control, and what is the risk if any of these things were compromised, because it's easier to work backwards from the outcomes that we're trying to achieve and decide from that which tools applied in which way collectively allow us to achieve those outcomes. It helps you avoid some of the sprawl problems with security tools and having 9 different admin portals you got to sit and monitor and work in, and especially in the heat of a breach when everyone's dander is up and now everyone's freaking out because something bad's happening. The last thing we want is everyone going, okay, now wait, which tool do I need? How do I stop this? And so having the foresight and the thought process of saying, okay, we're going to look ahead to, we need to close all these gaps and we need to operationally be able to attain these capabilities. And then how do we align the tools to help us achieve that tends to be a more effective approach.
So the tools themselves, buying and implementing, are relatively straightforward. But
once you have that plan,
if you have the plan of what the outcomes are and then assessing where you're at versus those outcomes, it seems like that's the direction to go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Chris. And James had a follow-up question too, off that same kind of topic. What are some of the best practices around tools Microsoft has for securing device identity, data, cloud apps? That's a loaded one. We could probably talk about that for 40 minutes. But if there was one thing in the stack right now that you would focus in on, what would be the number one thing? Like, I would say identity.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I mean, it's hard to just isolate it to a specific thing. I think maybe that's the most prominent first step is identity security, and how obviously in the Microsoft context it would be Entra ID and various elements associated with that. But yeah, I mean that is the new firewall or the new edge, and we can't rely just on network security layers to solve all of our problems. Not that they ever could, but we kind of deluded ourselves in the past into thinking they could by isolating everything behind the firewall. Well, that's just not practical in a cloud-first world in the first place, and so identity becomes the next, or the best option, I should say, to start with. It's not an end-all be-all at the same time, so we can't convince ourselves of that, but zero trust contextually around least privilege access and verifying explicitly. I mean, those are two of the three core principles in zero trust, and they're both identity focused. And so those tend to be where that first emphasis being placed can make a big difference.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And thanks, James, for the excellent question. All right. Our third question is from Ava, and she writes, with more and more companies moving from on-premise to cloud-based services and from an in-office to more of a hybrid or fully remote model, how have you as a company adapted your business to the changing needs and expectations of your customers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, pre-pandemic, we would have all been in the office every day, and we would have been serving our customers from the office in almost every case. We would have been going to customers and meeting them in their offices frequently. And I think what we've learned is, just speaking about Virteva, is that we've had to change a little bit about how we work. And I think that's kind of the heart of the question. Is one of the things that I think we've taken away from this is that the paradigm of having long meetings and in-person sessions and having sort of just rote sort of constant what was traditional top-down management structures weren't really aligned to the realities of people working from home and having to deal with, real life as they're living at home and working from home and connecting, and that we could do things more collaboratively through technology. So specifically, a couple examples is, we've gone from a bunch of couple-hour meetings on certain specific topics to smaller, shorter stand-up sessions. And the expectation is that everybody's on these for a period of time to get to, and if we don't have any more to talk about, we get off of them. We don't have the 2-hour management meetings every week anymore. We've got the 30-minute stand-ups on different topics, and if somebody can't make the meeting, they can still collaborate through the meeting by putting information into that meeting on Teams. They can get the recording of the meeting later, or they can get all of the notes from that meeting. They can give and get and receive tasks through those meetings, through the technology, and assigning the work out and using collaboration within the platforms. So the traditional days of everybody goes with their notepad and maybe sits on a long call and then they do a summary of all the different tasks that they're going to do, those things are just naturally ingrained into how we work. And as a remote organization, we think we've started to learn how to be more effective, in that some people are going to work from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning and be hyper productive, and some people are going to be working from midnight to 2 a.m. because of their schedule. And that we have these different touch points, and we use technology to do that, especially in our organization where we've got employees in a couple different continents, and we're working and collaborating with people that work in a 24-hour business. We can't be so top down. We're really horizontal in our structure, and then we use the technology to integrate it across these different spaces. So I can say that I think it's been generally one of the most significant changes has been absolute adoption of some of these collaboration platforms since the pandemic started has made us a better business. And so we're evangelists to that, to our customers, and we hope to enable them to do kind of the same things, welcome employees from across the country into your organization. Even if you had traditionally been a very in-person office, you can get a lot of different ideas and you can expand your business in lots of different ways through the implementation of these things.
Great answer. I like the way that you kind of weaved in Teams Premium on that too. Tali and I had a conversation on that on the last podcast around the benefits of intelligent recap and kind of different role-based areas for
Right.
Managers, directors.
Yeah, I mean, they've productized some of the things that we were doing inherently in how we actually worked, right? And they made it easier. And yeah, we haven't really gone all the way of adopting some of those new things widely yet, but we are in the process of doing that as the products become available. But you don't need to be everywhere at once doing 5 different things and being distracted to be successful anymore. If you can collaborate without writing a ton of emails, without doing gigantic PowerPoints all the time, without doing, sort of massive quantities of people staring at analysis and you're just repeating back and doing tourism around topics, right? It really is how do you engage people to contribute, to do their job, to inform, and to move forward in a new way. And I think that it's pretty exciting, some of the stuff. I mean, we're just on the edge of like building out some of the Viva stuff and how we can actually, trigger different things along points of success. And how can we integrate some of the online tasks and work that automatically trigger the next steps and following up with customers? And how do we automate some of those things to our different tools? It's basically using the platform for how we work to automate some of the most repetitious things without actually calling it AI. It's actually just productivity. It's pretty cool stuff.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
All right, so we've got 2 more questions. This first one's from Kirk, who writes, I run a technical team of engineers and everything moves so fast with Microsoft Cloud. It can be frustrating and hard for my team to keep up. What are some resources and communities that you use or could recommend to us to stay on top of the ever-evolving landscape?
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Kirk, for the question. Pat here. I can take an initial shot at that. Certainly open to others' opinions as well on this. I think, we've been talking even over the last few weeks or months on, over these last few years, we got so used to being online and doing virtual this and virtual that, and we've really seen a bit of pent-up non-socialization activities that folks want to get out and do stuff. And even as, whether that's personal or work, we've seen increased activities with user groups, conferences. Minnesota is a great place for the various Microsoft user groups. Getting back to meeting in person, whether it's around Microsoft 365, Azure, Power BI, Power Platform, Business Intelligence. Find those user groups. Get out. Reach out to your peers. Find companies similar to yours and folks similar to your roles and collaborate with them. I think, if we've learned anything over these last couple of years, it's not about, we need to be overly competitive and keep all of our IP and secrets. I think folks are a lot more outgoing now with what they're doing, how they're doing it, what's working. And I think folks have a lot of opportunity to get out and take advantage of learning from those peers. And another great source of learning is working with your Microsoft partner. Know your Microsoft seller. Know who their trusted partners are and work with those partners and pick their brains. I think Virteva has done an outstanding job. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Chris, Zach, Holly, podcast, newsletters, workshops, whether it be virtual or in person, all good ways of whether it be one-to-one with an organization or one-to-many, of really honing in on what it is that organizations need to keep up to speed. And every organization is different. And I think at Virteva, we've done a great job of tailoring the information and the different ways that we communicate with our customers to get across what is important to them, as opposed to kind of the traditional, hey, do this 3-day training, do this 4-day thing. Break it down into smaller bites. I think that's how folks learn today. And again, we have similar customers probably doing what you're looking at doing today. Let's connect you with those customers and talk about what challenges are you having and what opportunities do you have to be more successful in doing it. And I think those are all great ways of getting folks involved, getting them learning, getting them understanding what others are doing, and figuring out better ways to do things.
Yeah, just to add to that too, so those are all great suggestions. Personally, the way that I keep up on it, outside of even the user groups, is there are a ton of great YouTube channels out there. There are a ton of great podcasts out there outside of our podcast. Message Center is your best friend. There's also tons and tons of blogs out there that we could recommend to check out. Just whatever you're interested in, search it either using traditional searches, Google, Bing. Try the new Bing AI chatbot that's out there at bing.com/chat. That can help you find a lot of these great resources. Just check them, verify them, and understand that, especially when you're using the chatbots and so fairly new, is not everything that it spits out may be 100% accurate, but there's a lot of great resources out there for you just on the internet alone. But yeah, I agree. Meeting in person, sitting down, and even having kind of sit downs just with your own internal teams within your organization to talk about some of those new products and, bang your heads together and try and understand it together and then build from there.
Yeah, I would say especially if you're spending the majority of your time working from home, find out ways to network in person, again, with like-minded technologists that are interested in the same things that you are. And I think it just goes a long way in helping, create additional ways to keeping up to speed.
Yeah, if you don't have, if you're looking for resources for your company or organization that you want, tailored to your situation or what you're looking to achieve, reach out and talk to Pat and Chris and Scott and others about some of the workshops that we can do that are tailored to your organization. And in some cases, these are not necessarily, weeks and weeks of time of investment. We can make them into a few hours over a couple days where we can really dive deep in and help you understand the technology. We can help understand how the technology is relevant or related to other things you might be doing, and then we can help you with getting the resources for a roadmap, helping to write that ROI and that next steps for your management team, and that's a collaborative learning process. It's not just some guy coming in, ninja jumping out of a plane and landing and taking care of everything. It's really a conversation, and we can make you and your team look really good, and we can help you. We don't need to sort of push you out of the way to get that accomplished. So we're partner with.
Great answers all. Okay, this is going to be our last one, and it's from Jean, who asks, how does your team approach standardization of processes and workflows to get the most out of your service desk and managed services? How do you approach optimization around your different customers' Microsoft 365 environments to ensure that both security and the ease of use with proper security are enabled?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can take that. I think standardization of process on Service Desk is really key to ensuring a great experience, which isn't just on an individual level, but also making sure that it's a consistent experience. Frequently, we hear that there are all-stars within certain groups on certain teams, and someone can do it all, someone that's maybe been there for a long time. But then when you get the new person, then that experience can really have a large variation there. So what we're trying to do is create consistency on our service desk. And generally that's done through our extensive knowledge base articles. So we do have consistent documentation around what to do in high priority situations. So P1, P2 situations. We do have a document of every single app or every single service, and then how that ties back to the organization, who's responsible for level 1, who's responsible for level 2 and 3, and so on. I think that's really good for just getting high level clarity on who's responsible for what. And then within that, going through troubleshooting steps, and then also collaborating with those level 2 and level 3 groups on looking for ways that level 1 can take more off their plate. So knowledge management is really key on the first part of that question, and would strongly encourage, no matter where you are in that journey, and it is a journey, but to get started and to move forward in a continuous improvement perspective. And then when it comes to securing Microsoft 365, we work with our customers on Secure Score, and we track that on a regular basis. So we go through that monthly with our customers, and we use Secure Score to benchmark against best practices to ensure that they are, exceeding where their peer groups are, and to always be looking at, what's the next thing that can continue to secure the organization. So, for some customers that have just started they've just turned on multi-factor authentication, but haven't really done much since. We can basically develop a roadmap for the next 30, 60, 90 days to really advance them towards securing their environment even further. And, as everyone knows, the security environment changes drastically, and so do those recommendations. So we continue to keep our customers up to date through that mechanism.
Great answer. Thanks, Zach.
Where do you think customers are getting the most bang for their buck when it comes to automation and workflow? If folks are looking to just get started in that area, where's a good place to start?
Well, I would argue task fulfillment.
I
would argue. I would
sell
argue.
the task fulfillment.
I would start with automating some of the most common repetition defined types of work, right? Like onboarding and offboarding and assigning roles and permissions and things that really should be well defined from a security perspective, but also a productivity perspective, allow you to basically script or automate some of those things out. So we're helping a lot of customers look at their Office 365 environment as the first place that they go to when it comes to enabling and training and teaching their employees what their jobs are going to be for knowledge workers, in healthcare, and how do they get into these systems, and then they can leverage the platform to actually become good at their job. You can automate different steps through the process to make it predictable and make it a high quality experience. So that's one of the first areas that we would start with on automation. I would also note that the interesting enough is that knowledge is both a proactive and reactive continuous improvement, but it really is foundational for customers that are going to be looking to do AI capabilities and to build out processes that allow users to do self-service and self-incident resolution, as they're basically going to be able to use the information that they've written down and they've improved and they've really honed in on how to solve or understand what those different problems are. They can use that to feed into machine learning, and they can use that to feed into automation. So if you were not going to do anything else to get to the next step in your maturity levels, writing knowledge and creating repeatable processes around the employee experience are probably the most beneficial in the first third of your journey in maturity.
Great, fantastic. All right, so that's the end of our questions for today. Again, we only had time to answer 5, but I did want to thank everyone that wrote in. Anyone that we didn't have a chance to answer here on the podcast, we'll be responding to you via email if you left that in the contact form. And again, I just wanted to thank everyone here today, Brenda, Pat, Chris, Zach, Dan, for attending and answering these questions.
Thank you as well. And
Great
thanks
to be
to
here.
everybody that's been participating, listening, and engaging in these podcasts. I think it's great.
Yeah, the engagement in the newsletter and the podcast has been really phenomenal. So keep the questions and ideas coming, and thanks for putting this together, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always, if you have any questions or need help with implementing or managing any Microsoft 365 features, you can contact Virteva. We're a leading IT managed service provider and can help you with all your IT needs. You can email us at letstalk@virteva.com or our website at www.virteva.com. Want even more Microsoft news? You can sign up for our Microsoft 365 newsletter by visiting our website. The newsletter recaps a handful of topics each month and keeps you in the loop about recent news and announcements. Thank you all again for tuning in to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast. If you made it this far, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And have a great rest of your day.